Hey everybody, Rob here. It's time for a story from the ProRevenge archives. Contractor abandons project midway, resulting in damages, tries to go off the grid, but I found him, and now he's paying me every penny. Let's jump right in. Hit that subscribe button or I'm eating all the cookies. So the story begins with my needing to hire a contractor to repair damage to a pole barn that I was constructing on our property. The structure was partially done when a storm hit and the structure had substantial damage. So we bid a few contractors, and the guy that seemed to be the best one, who was actually a referral from a friend, we signed a contract and he started work within a week. We had also signed with him to complete the structure after the insurance portion was completed because his crew could do this much more efficiently and a better job than we could do ourselves, which is what we were originally doing. His crew completes the insurance portion of the job, but then abandons the project just before starting the rest of it. No call, no email, nothing. I called and texted, and not one of my contact points was ever returned. At this point, it was late December, and we thought maybe he and his crew had holiday plans, but would resume right after. Then, another windstorm hit, and his crew hadn't braced the partially completed structure correctly, and it almost collapsed again. I tried for 2 weeks to find him. I even drove out to the address on the contract we signed, which ended up being a house on a rural road next town over. I knocked on the door, seeing his car there. No one answered. I stopped by this house several different times, trying to catch him. The last few times, his car was no longer there, but the work truck of another company was. Wanting to know if he owned the house, I pulled up the tax records for it in the county it was in. Name on the house was not registered to him, so sounds like he rented or at least was staying with a friend. The company info on the truck was registered to someone unrelated and not on the tax records. The tax records showed that the actual taxpayer of the property lived elsewhere. Here, where I live, the property owner name is listed, and if they do not actually live at the property, such as in using it for an investment, their address that would have the actual tax bill sent to is also on there. Given that knowledge, I pulled the court records for him to see if maybe he had been recently arrested or if there was any other info. What I found was about 30 years of driving offenses, including a lot of DUI, DWI charges, and other records. At this point, I figured he was long gone, and being as I hadn't paid out any money for him to work that was not complete, I would just move on. At least until the structural engineer I hired to assess the damage to the work that was done stated that the structure had to be started over on that part, and the building materials that the contractor had left scattered around the job site were also unusable due to being left improperly stored. I had hoped that the structure could just be pulled back into place and resecured, but I was told this was not the case. So began the bigger drama and my determination to find him. So far, his negligence had cost $1,200 for a structural engineer opinion. Our insurance company paid for a second opinion because they didn't like what ours said, $2,500 for insurance deductible to the newest contractor hired to repair the exact damage that happened 3 months prior, and $7,000 in materials that his insurance company refused to cover or pay for, and my insurance policy on the project did not cover either. The adjuster for his insurance company said that he was able to locate the contractor but refused to give up any information for him directly. That and the fact that the project wasn't finished had detriment to my farm and boarding business because 2 of my pastures that were connected to where the building was sitting couldn't be used. This limited my ability to use natural pasture grass in summer months by rotating pastures for each herd, and had to purchase hay, which gets quite expensive. By the time the building was completed and I could get my pastures back to normal, I had losses of over $14,000. Because I didn't know where he now lived, I used the only address I had for him to file for small claims court, which here has a limit of $15,000. The court documents I served came back undeliverable. This meant that I was kind of stuck because a court date cannot be scheduled until all parties are properly served. But how do I find an address for someone who doesn't seem to register to any particular address directly? Time was still on my side, as this was still early mid last year, so I kept a watch on social media for anything with his name, which was a very unique name. If there was another man of the same name within this state, within even the same metro area, it was unlikely because of how unique the name was. Then, one day this past fall, after Google searching the name again, there it was, his Facebook page. His name hadn't shown up before on Facebook with several searches. Not sure why this was the case. Even better, all his settings were set to public. I could see everything he wrote about, including his recent commitment to stay sober earlier in 2017, just after he abandoned my project, and his employer's name. He had posted a pic of him on a job site, and someone asked where he worked now. He named the place, so a quick Google search and voila, got an address to serve him court papers to. So I refiled with the newfound address, but I still needed a home address to enforce the judgment once I won the case. So what did I do? Seeing that he was listed as single in his page, I used a fake Facebook profile that I originally had in use to test various features I enable on pages that I start up under my real profile. Truthfully, I only use that profile for the purpose to make sure the settings I put in place truly work, but now it would serve another purpose. Getting this guy to give me all the information I needed, playing on his being middle-aged and single. To create my alter ego, I found a website of a cute blonde lady in her 40s, so as to not be too young for him since he was around mid-40s himself, and just yanked pics. I only set one to the profile photo and would use the rest if he asked for more. I changed all the pics in the profile to look like it was a typical page of the average mid-40s female. Holy crap, did this work, and it worked so well. I used some information I found on his page to strike up a conversation about stuff stolen out of his work truck in the alley behind his house. Big clue. And it was reported to the city police department. He named the city, so another big clue. So using this information and telling him I had grown up in the same area, I got him to give me a general area where he lived, keeping conversation cool like, is the pizza joint still there? They've been around forever, etc., so he wouldn't get suspicious. Thank goodness for Google Maps giving me a better idea of that area so I could talk about it like I did in fact grow up there. In reality, I have only ever been in that city twice, and other times drove through on the way to somewhere else. I was able to narrow down the area he talked about, and using that info, I pulled the police report records from that city. There were 3 reports done within the same area on that same day he reported, so, using that information, I pulled the county tax records to see who owned the houses. I found 3 houses within that area that could possibly be rentals since the owner name and taxpayer billing address did not match. This could be a long shot to find the person, but I didn't have anything to lose by searching. Just as I was about to call the homeowners to see if anyone by the name of the contractor rented from them, he posts some info on his page that made the calls completely unnecessary. He posted the name of his roommate in a status update, who I then check out the profile of. The profile lists the roommate's landscaping business. A quick Google search of that business name, and bingo, his state business registration address matched one of the 3 addresses I suspected to be the rental house. So now I have his home address. He had already been served at his employer's address for the court date. Fast forward to the court date, he didn't show up, which I suspected he wouldn't, so I got default judgment. Between serving him the papers and the court date passing, the Facebook profile I was using to talk to him was helpful in getting info out of him about his life, his job situation, how much he made per hour, me finding knowledge about what construction trades paid, and the fact that he was looking at changing employers. He even told me the name of that employer, so I was armed with info should he decide to not work with me. He played right into my hands. Once I got the official judgment from the small claims court win, I decided to contact him myself on Facebook using Messenger. I sat down and wrote out a whole paragraph to him, first typing it in Word so that I could print it out and edit it and have my husband read it as well. I wrote that while I was angry at him, I was going to give him one chance to work a deal with me, rather than using our State Department of Revenue to play collection officer for me. I hate dealing with our State Department of Revenue. They make the IRS look like Sunday school teachers, but if it came down to that, I would, and they would start garnishing his wages. And here, they take 25% of each paycheck after taxes and have the person's employer do it for them and then send it to me. However, I hate letting the state be the middleman because they just complicate things. But I told him straight out that if he refused to work with me directly, I would go to that extreme. I told him that I know he's an addict and has had struggles in the past. I told him that knowing he has had struggles, I was willing to work with him directly and give him an opportunity to offer a monthly payment amount that works for him and his budget, rather than have the state decide the amount for him. To shorten this up, he replied, agreed, signed, and had notarized a monthly payment agreement, complete with a list of manual labor tasks that he could use in place of a payment or two to help with some projects on my farm. I was thinking, whoa, this story wrapped up really quickly, but then I read in the comments below, upvote for showing some compassion and not totally ruining the guy in your quest for revenge. Made the story even better to hear you gave him a chance to make amends. And OP replied with this. Part of this was when I was scrolling through his newsfeed just after he abandoned the project, he had posted that he has a definite commitment to staying sober for the sake of his kids, especially his son who is like 10 or something. Lots of pics of him and the kid and his other daughters. So knowing that what I would do would impact his ability to be a dad and do things with them, it would not be good karma if I strong-armed him and his kids suffered. He had made so many bad decisions for so long, and it looked like he was truly committed this time. I didn't want to drive him to make more bad decisions that would ultimately impact the kids again, all for the sake of money. So OP actually has a conscience, something nice to see in ProRevenge for a change. I want to thank OP for posting their story to the ProRevenge subreddit. You can visit them at the links in the description below. Please go there and give them an upvote. Once again, this is Rob from Karma Comment Chameleon saying thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one.